Education meeting to begin first with the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget hearing. It's Wednesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order for the roll call, please.
Mack.
Here.
Braden. Nash. Absent. Albert.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
And Weedman.
Okay, that's quorum. Please join me for the pledge. All right, thank you. I need a motion to approve the budget hearing agenda for this evening, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
And LaCroix.
Aye.
Okay, and that moves us to the presentation from Mr. Wildman tonight.
Wonderful. Okay, this is the budget presentation for CCSD 46 for the school year ending June 30th, 2024. The district mission, I believe that the budget process supports all these things, specifically empowering learners. Most of the budget conversations take place over several months and revolve around student-centered decision-making. A budget reveals our district's values. So I want to stress that we collaborate as an administrative team on bringing forth a budget that represents our mission and all of our strategic goals, finance, facilities, technology, both curriculum goals, and communication. So here's the finance goal. I'm not listing all 6. We are guided by all the strategic planning goals, and the backbone of any school district is our board policy. And here is board policy 4:20, maintaining an operating fund balance of at least 25 to 30%. So here's the timeline of the budget. We discussed the preliminary budget a long time ago on May 17th. And it was presented to you on June 7th in tentative form. This was on public display, and we have the hearing this evening. And after today, after it is approved, we will file with the state before the September 30th deadline. So I have a new quote for you. A budget is more than just a series of numbers on a page, is an embodiment of our values. This is, I think, the first quote I've got from a living person. Most of mine have been from people who are dead, so I'm very glad to actually have somebody who's alive with us. And it was really hard to find one, so I went with this one because I really liked it. And I do believe that this is the case with public education, as we just mentioned. So what has changed since the tentative budget? We had our May discussion, we had the June tentative budget, and we've done a huge amount of changes in our actual hiring. So the biggest one we have is we've actually hired people who'd left the district and were actually part of our staffing plan that we presented to you in March and April. All of those individuals have salaries and benefits which are actual. They're not just numbers which are represented in something that we expect to be hired at, and those get put in the budget. And then the second thing we have is we actually received our evidence-based fund tiering, and it was an extra $2.1 million. So we have really good news. The net change of those was that we went from a budget deficit on an operating fund basis of $3.4 million to $2.7. So really good news. So a quick reminder for the community, again, we're a Tier 1 district for the purposes of EBF, which is the main source of our state funding. That's 65% adequacy, which is $17 million adequacy gap based on our most recent Illinois report card. So it's very difficult for Tier 1 districts to do all the things that a Tier 4 district would do. And this is an annual gap in revenues and expenditures. So this is one of the underlying reasons we have a budget deficit. the district, we need to rely upon EBF tier funding. And we're also limited by the property tax extension limitation law, which is either 5% or CPI. Here is that state funding since its creation in 2018, which was based on the final year back in 2017, the general state aid formula. And as you can see, our base funding has now increased to 18.5 million. So we're really proud of what we accomplished with that money. As you can see, we have excellent schools. Again, our most updated Illinois report card data. Here is our all funds budget. As you can see, we are in a deficit position, as we've already stated, due to our operating deficit. In addition, what puts us in an all funds increased deficit position because we're including our planned spending from capital projects, as well as our planned expenditures through transfers to pay for our debt service. These are expenditures which would be years 2 and 3 of the priority capital plan, which was approved in December of 2021. Here's a breakdown of our revenues. 60% comes from property taxes, 59% from local taxpayers, meaning the levy, 32% from the state, which is our EBF, and federal funding making up 5%. This is a slight change from last year, when we got 29% from the state and 8% in federal sources. Here's a breakdown of our expenditures. 62% goes to our staffing and their benefits, and a further 14% goes to purchase services. We know what this is. It's GSF to clean our buildings at night, it's Durham to transport our students, and it's Arbor to feed our students. Almost 14% goes to the debt payments of the bonds to repay our buildings that were built over 2 decades ago. Here's a quick recap of those capital expenditures which are planned. We have 2 new roofs, one at Prairie View and one at Woodview, and the new building automation system at all buildings except Avon. Avon had its building automation last summer. These are all completed over the summer, and we're all completed on budget. Here are some of the other initiatives that we've included in this year's budget, which have all been brought to your attention. There should be nothing you've not seen before. We have the new science curriculum, which was paid through a combination of ESSA ARP funding and part of last year's budget, replacement Chromebooks, cabling and access points, and a replacement dishwasher at Grays Lake Middle School. And we also have our security cameras at Park Campus, which was recently board approved. Okay, here are the next steps. Once approved, I've said we will file with the state agencies, and I will begin work on 5-year projections for the next finance committee, which is scheduled for November 8th. Questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Wildman. Could you just review for us, for the benefit of anyone who's new, a little bit more about deficit spending and why we're in it? I know that you say this is a symptom of a structural problem. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Absolutely. So the district doesn't have enough revenue for its expenditures, which over time will mean that we have to deficit spend to do all the things that we want to do. So we don't have enough money to spend on capital. We don't have enough money to fulfill all the positions that we have filled this year, which is resulting in us going into a deficit position. We're doing all the correct things that we need to do as an executive leadership team, and we brought that to you as part of a staffing plan to be able to support our students today. And part of that is that we are doing the right things for our students. And unfortunately, when you're only at 65%, that means you're not doing everything that you need to do, because 17 million is quite a large amount to bridge annually. So if you think of it as we bridged 17 million and we got it down to 2.7, we did a pretty good job, I think.
Other questions? Oh, thank you, Mr. Wellman.
I would just like to thank 2 people who are behind the scenes for the budget buck. The budget buck is a little bit of a labor of love for myself, and for Leslie, she's laughing, and for Marco Matic as well. I cannot forget him as well. So we put a lot of work into this, and it's Lynn's favorite too. I know she loves it as well. She loves reviewing those pages. So it's a real pleasure for the district to bring this to you, because we really think it's a fantastic opportunity to explain what we're doing in a narrative form for everybody. Thank you.
I just have to jump in. He's joking because we spent a lot of time on it, but I'm actually very appreciative of the human element of our budget. The important content in this budget is, of course, the numbers, right? That's what you think about when you go to a budget. But we've worked really hard to make sure that it's clear that all of this number crunching, right? It's really all about the students. And so there's a lot of narrative about the work that happens in the school district and a lot of photos. And thank you so much for that, Leslie. And in fact, Board, I would invite you to turn to my very favorite page, which is the last page. It's a photo on the last page that really shows why it's about the kids that we're doing this for. So it is a student heading off for the first day of school. And that's why we have the budget that we have. It's for those kids. So thank you, Mr. Wildman. Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong, for that. Okay.
Thank you all. Are there any public comments? I think so. All right, I need to, we do adjourn the meeting, call for a vote to adjourn the meeting, the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, the public budget hearing meeting has adjourned, and we'll go straight into the regular meeting. So I need a call to order for the regular board meeting this evening. And a roll.
Mack,
Here. Still.
Braden, oops, I'm sorry. Braden, absent. Nash, absent. Albert,
Here.
LaCroy,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
and Weedman.
Okay, we still have quorum, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance earlier. If there's no objection, we can move to a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
I'll second.
Okay.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman. LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, great. I'm still no public comments, I'm assuming, between 3 minutes ago and now. So we can move on to the board reports. I think I started down there last time, so I'll start over with Mrs. Miller.
Just a quick one. The community cafe has been scheduled for October 20th. It's from 6:30 to 8 at Prairie View, and the focus will be on engaging new families. And when we talk about new families, we're specifically talking about kindergarten families, families who have transferred here from other districts, and also our multilingual families.
Just to follow up, last meeting I told you I was going to attend the community group that we've formed with the village regarding incentives to bring in more business. We had a nice meeting. I sent Dr. Glickman an email outlining what happened, and I know it's been passed along, but for the public, it's a committee that's been put together to try and incentivize more business coming into town, and what our district is going to be willing to do to help along those lines as far as tax abatements and stuff. So there is a rough idea floating out there right now. They're working on putting some draft information together for the group, and as soon as I have that and we have our next meeting, I will pass that along. But other than that, the meeting went pretty well, and I thought it was a good discussion.
Ms. Albert?
I want to bring up that the CEC, the Community Engagement Committee, had their first meeting. It was a great meeting to the start to the school year. Another reminder of the value of interorganization, communication, and resource sharing. And just want to point out that the PTO and PTF leaders and volunteers and the staff who coordinate some of these valuable events that they put on, they're all community building and building relationships and access to resources. And they have an important role in forming social connections that make our district a great place. So there have been a high attendance at several back to school and fall events, and anticipated high attendance at the Frederick Camp Out this Friday night. So thank you to all the leaders who put that together, the various activities together. Second report is about Foundation 46. Many of you are probably aware that they're in a period of transition and rebuilding. They are collaborating with full support of all D46 PTOs to provide volunteer support, leveraging their communication channels for outreach, and reintroduce the foundation and their mission to the community. Barnfest has been postponed likely until spring, but there will be most likely will be a fall fundraiser as an adults-only event, so look out for more details to come. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I do not have a report tonight, just thanking everybody again for the discussion we had about the change in meeting time for this evening, and it's nice to start a half an hour earlier. So that concludes the board reports, it looks like, so I'll move it along to Dr. Glickman.
Thank you. Superintendent report, we'll start with information from our teaching and learning department. So Amy?
Good evening. So I have two things I'm going to talk about. The first is late start that we had last week. It was our first late start, and it was an opportunity for our Job-alike teams to get together and do some curricular work. So just a reminder of what our Job-alike is that is teachers coming from different buildings together that have like content and are able to have conversation about standards and assessments and implementation of all of our new resources. So we had our first one of those last week, so great conversation. And the other thing that I would like to mention is Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins September 15th, and it's September 15th. We have provided activities for all of our staff at all grade levels within grade level bands, so K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8, to have some focus on this topic across all grade levels at all schools over the next month. So looking forward to see what happens in our classrooms.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gluck. And the only other piece of the superintendent's report is that last week I received the date for this spring's Lake County Educator of the Year Awards ceremony. So this year will be the third year of that ceremony. And the first year, it was kind of brand new, and it came up quickly in the spring. We didn't know it was coming, and it was on a board meeting night. And so although that first year we had some staff members who were nominated and therefore able to go to the dinner, most of our administrators weren't able to go. Last year, it just so happened to be not on a board meeting night, and so a bunch of us went, and we had many staff members who had been nominated as Lake County Educators of the Year. It was a great evening. Last year, our GMS band played. It was amazing. This year, it's been scheduled on the first board meeting of May for us. I mean, they didn't intentionally schedule it on our first board meeting, but as it happens, that's when it is. So I asked Dr. Mack if it might be possible for us to move the May board meeting, that board meeting. The difficulty is that just the way those spring board meetings go, really the only way to move that board meeting is to whittle it down to one board meeting in May, just the way the calendar works out. So I wondered if the board was interested in just having one board meeting in May. It would be May 15th. So it's, I guess, a little opportunity for you to give input on that. Any thoughts?
Any comment? I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I think we have just have.
We can do all the
As long as-
yeah, you know, Chris Weldman and I spoke about this. You know, we can certainly get all the bills paid with one board meeting. I think the one thing that stuck out at me is that we have lots of student athletics in May. And so, remember, we had some conversation here at this table about trying to shorten meetings and not have a lot of groups at one time. If we only have one board meeting in May, it could make for a longer meeting because we might have a number of student groups that we were having present. But we would keep those individual presentations short.
Yeah, and I think the conversation
Okay.
we have are flexible too, so
Exactly.
we know that
Right,
some
so
of
that would
them
be a
might end up
reason,
being-
right?
yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got some consensus on this. So what we'll do is next board meeting, we will bring yet another amended calendar. This time not amending start times, but instead amending the actual, the board dates in May. Okay, that's it for the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Glickman. That moves us to the consent agenda, so I do need a motion to approve the consent agenda for this evening, including the personnel addendum that was sent to us earlier this afternoon.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay,
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda approved, and we've got a bunch of action items to go through, so we'll go ahead and start. The first one up is need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget as has been presented to us.
I'll move.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Okay,
Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Albert.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. The second one is a motion to approve the transfer of funds from the Operations and Maintenance Fund of the district to the Debt Service Fund of the district for the purpose of paying the debt service on the general obligation refunding debt certificates, limited tax, Series 2020 of the district. There you go. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
This is the annual thing we have to do, right?
Yes, we receive all our money in Fund 20, and we have to pay the debt certificates. When I say money, the solar renewable energy credits, about $403,000 we receive, and the annual payment for the solar arrays for our buildings is about $595,000. So we have to do the transfer because it's in the wrong fund.
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye. Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, next up is the motion to approve the school maintenance project grant round 1 application. I need a motion for that, please.
I'll move.
I'll second this time. Any comments or questions for that? Go ahead.
I just am wondering if it's a white roof. Is it a white roof for Avon, or will it be a white roof, or might it be a white roof?
It'll be similar construction.
So it'll be similar construction to what we're doing at the other roofs as well, and as you saw in the pictures, some of those are, you know, the portions that we can have white roofing, we will do that.
Yay, okay, great, wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved. Next up is the motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 tax levy timeline. I need a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions? Okay.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, and the final motion is the motion to approve the license agreement with Huntington Bank as presented at the last meeting.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay,
Miller,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Very good, motion approves. Thank you, everybody. And that moves us on to unfinished business with a funding proposal update this evening.
Yeah, well, we are deeply into the information giving and gathering portion of this funding proposal conversation. So as I indicated at our last meeting, we have a lot of information that we are sharing with the community. We're also getting questions from the community. We're starting to get them, and that's very useful. So we'll talk about those questions in a moment. So last week, board members, you all should have received a mailer with a lot of information in it. It went out to all residents within our school district boundaries, whether people have children in our district or not. And then there's a second mailer that'll be going out the end of September with yet more information in it as well. Those meetings that I talked about last time start tomorrow night. So tomorrow night right here at Frederick, we will have the very first community meeting where we'll be sharing information with the community, but also there's lots of time organized for Q&A. So we're looking forward to answering community questions. There's another similar meeting, same content, different night, different location at Park Campus on October 2nd, and then another one on October 5th at Avon. Also, both of those meetings starting at 6:30, and Avon's meeting will also have a Spanish interpreter. And board members, I would love to see you at one of the meetings if you're able to come. I think it would be wonderful for you to both see how the information is being presented to the community, but also to hear the questions that are being asked, because really the whole point of all of this is for you as a board to understand where the community is sitting on these topics, right? So for you to hear that directly would be very useful. Also, as a reminder that one of the meetings, I believe it will be the October 2nd meeting, will be videotaped, will be recorded. We don't have videotape anymore, recorded. So that'll be posted on our website. I'll talk more about that website in a moment. Along with those meetings, we have some meetings out in the community scheduled. So we have 2 meetings at Grays Lake Public Library. One will be on October 2nd at noon. It'll be a lunch and learn. On October 5th, Mr. Wildman and I are going to the Exchange Club to speak. And also, on the 5th, and on the 12th, the Chamber of Commerce Mixer, the Grays Lake Chamber of Commerce Mixer at First Draft at 5 o'clock. I believe we have a couple of board members coming to that meeting. And then back to the public library on October 12th at 7 o'clock for folks who would rather be at an evening meeting. So that's about the meetings. And then let's talk about media. So there's the website, I mentioned that a moment ago. And can we throw up on the board the new page on our website that is about maintaining excellence? Fantastic, thank you. By the way, board, you may see an unfamiliar face in the room manning all of our technology tonight. So thank you so much for being here tonight, Juan. He's doing a great job. He's streaming for us, and he's running everything on our tech. But if anything seems a little different, we have someone different doing it this evening. Thank you, Juan. So if you can just scroll for me for a moment, you can see, yep. We've got, just scroll through. We're not going to read, we're just going to look. So we have lots of information posted on that website, on that web page, including, will you pause there for a second? Thank you. All of those LinkedIn reports, and I'll be talking about those reports just a little bit at the community meetings. So we're really glad that all of those are available, or the ones that we have links for, available for community members to read themselves so they can know exactly what the data was that people were looking at when recommendations were made. And if you scroll a little bit more to the bottom, thank you. We've got a few quotes in there. We've got pictures of our schools, talking about the age of the schools, and information is also available in Spanish. So that's what we have now. There are 2 more pieces of information that we expect to be available soon. One is our FAQ. we want to get through a meeting or two with the community before we put up an FAQ, because we actually want to get more cues, right, before we put them up there. So right now, we're just, we've started working on it with the questions we've been receiving, some of them. But that will be on there, and then there will be the video. So I talked with you about that as well, board, that we have shot a video. It's in its editing stage right now. We had lots and lots of people involved, including Mrs. Braden, thank you, Dr. Mack, thank you, and Mrs. Nash as well, who did a fantastic job. And, like anything, things get cut. So I don't know what the final cut will be, but we're still working on it. But I want to tell you that your board members spoke very eloquently about what it has meant to them to have their children involved in our school district. And so thank you for all of that. So that's what's going on with the videos. And then I wanted just to back up and talk a little bit about the kinds of questions we've been receiving. So again, not in a formal way because we haven't had those meetings yet, but we invited people to start emailing me questions, contacting me. I've been at some more, some small meetings where people are asking questions. So I wanted to share a few of them that have come through just for your awareness. One question I recently received was actually about Foundation 46. And that question was about understanding that there is a funding gap in, as Mr. Wildman just spoke about and shared through his presentation, a very significant funding gap in terms of how much money is taken in by the district. And the question was, hey, we have this wonderful foundation. Can the foundation really help make up that gap? And so I wanted to speak for a moment about that. First of all, in case board members, you were not aware, but I think you probably all are, the goal of that foundation is really to fund special projects that teachers put forward, and relatively small grants. But the other piece that I wanted to share is, having been at the Foundation 46 meeting last week, I can tell you that currently the Foundation 46 balance sits below $30,000. Now, they certainly are intending to do fundraising, but that $30,000 doesn't go very far at all when we're talking about that $17 million gap. So that's the answer to that question. I also had a question about our library media centers. Somebody asking, why would the school district and the school board consider asking the taxpayers for money for library media centers when it should be the school district's responsibility to fund those centers? And in conversation with this individual, I came to understand that this person thought it was for books. And so as board, I think as you all know, absolutely, I mean, we always want more books, right? For sure, we always want more books, we always want more materials, but without question, the school district does fund the media centers with materials. The need that we are seeing at this time is to make structural changes to those media centers so that they better reflect the way students learn today and have opportunities for collaboration, and very importantly, have space for STEM learning. So that's what the media library center funding request would look like. I was asked, is the money just for building improvements? And so, of course, the answer to that is no. Board, I think, as you know, we would be looking at half of that money going towards capital improvements, some of that for those library media centers that I just talked about, some of it for student support spaces. That's about 20% of that half, the rest of that half going towards the capital needs that are unfunded for 7 years in the future. But the other half is for the operating fund. And of course, the operating fund is the day-to-day operations of the school district, the money that we need to have in order to keep class sizes where they are, to maintain the outstanding programming that we currently have, and to be able to attract and train and retain our outstanding teaching staff. So that's what the other half of the money is for. That kind of dovetails into another question I received, which is, why would we consider asking money for facilities and operations at one time? So in fact, in the past, school district has separated that out, right? The park campus was funded through a facilities request, and then there have been operating requests. It's all happening at one time. The board would, if the board chooses to go for referendum, potentially it would have requests for both operating fund and facilities, because as we've talked about, we have needs in both areas. One doesn't necessarily supersede the other. And finally, there are folks out in the community asking about their recent tax assessments. People wondering, and concerned about their recent changes to their tax assessments on their homes, and wondering what those changes could possibly mean in relation to the possibility of a funding proposal. This is very complicated, particularly because, of course, an elementary school district is only one taxing body that is on a tax bill. There's lots of taxing bodies, and there are many, many factors that go into that tax bill. That stated, a little while ago, I believe you approved the schedule for the levy timeline. And so when Mr. Wildman comes to the board in October, I think it's October 25th, when he presents the levy for the first time, he will do some work on explaining more of that information as well. He'll kind of fold it into that. So those are the kinds of questions we're receiving. We're hoping we get more questions tomorrow night, and then more on the 2nd, and then more on the 5th, because truly it is only through asking questions that we can provide information, and ultimately that the board can understand what the community is thinking. So that's the update for the evening. Any questions about that? All righty.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Glickman. We do not have any items under new business for the evening. We can move to topics for future agenda items.
All right. So October 10th, we're going to do a solar update. So I believe we have Performance Services coming, yeah? Performance Services is going to come and present information about the function of our solar panels and the money that's being recouped in the school district by their use, and ultimately how we're helping, the world with the use of our solar panels. We'll bring you that board meeting calendar revision that we talked about earlier in the superintendent's report. We have contracts with Train that will be, are we presenting contracts for approval, or is it discussion?
We would love to present them for approval.
For approval?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to bring you that. We're going to bring you contracts for approval. You always have the right to say, "Hey, we just want to talk about it. Please bring them back again." Right? So, but we're going to bring them for approval. They're to complete work that was identified over the summer. That's what they're for. And then 2 discussions that we're hoping that one discussion that is particularly timely that we hope the board will have, which is identifying an IASB delegate for the III conference. So can we put that on as new business? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. And then in conversation with CEC leaders, we wondered about having more conversation or return to conversation about board members and CEC members attending community meetings. This built out of kind of some other conversations that have had. Board members, you may know that I have been asked by the Grays Lake Chamber of Commerce to sit on their board of directors, and I have said that I would do that. We haven't really closed the loop yet with the chamber, but I've let them know that I'm happy to do that if that's what they want. But that kind of spurred off some conversation about the fact that we have folded into this year's board goals, our strategic goals, the concept of board members and CEC members attending some community meetings. So we wondered if we could re-engage the board in conversation about that through a board, through a board conversation the next meeting. Is that okay? Okay, so we'll do that. That's what I have for October 10th.
Can I ask a couple of things?
Yeah?
When we have the solar guys come in, could you also give part of your financial update, where we're at as far as payment goes and how long we're going to be still paying for those?
Yes, absolutely can do that. Yep.
So we know where that cutoff is. And then if at some point in the near future we can just get a personnel update, like what's open positions, what we have open.
Sure, we can You want to do that on October 10th also? Yeah, we might as well do that sooner rather than later. Sure.
Thank you.
Is that, board, is that something you'd also all like? Yeah? I was guessing you would, right? That makes sense. Sure. Sure.
Can we also add the waste stream baseline collection to that meeting as well?
So let's talk timing about that for a moment. Chris Wildman, I know we've just set a meeting for the committee. They're mouthing at each other what the date is. I believe I have it on my calendar, but I believe it's in November, isn't it? Or is it October?
It's October 24th.
October 24th. Okay, so the next board meeting would be too soon to do that. I would say it would make more sense to me for us to do that maybe the first board meeting in November. Okay, so we'll add that to the November 8th board meeting as information about that. Okay. Thank you. Sure. Okay. That's all I have at this time.
Are there any public comments? Do we have a closed session?
We do.
Okay, then we are going to adjourn the meeting to move into closed session. We do not anticipate any further business after the closed session, so we will adjourn from the closed session. So I need a motion to enter into closed session, please.
I will move to enter into closed session.
Second.
Okay,
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
aye?
Albert,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.